All right, on this week's episode, we are back in Oklahoma to visit with Tyrell Roy. Tyrell is a farmer and is only in his 30s, but wait until you see the absolute pile of antlers he has in his garage and hear all the stories. So let's get right into it. Here we go.
Tyrell Roy, welcome to where I keep all of my heads and sheds, and dead heads, I guess. I farm here in northwest Oklahoma, and this is my collection, I guess. Start right over here. This is the first deer I shot with, first antler deer I ever shot. My grandma was with me on this hunt. It's super special to me. Missed the deer and then kind of stalked up on it and actually hit it. I think I was 13 or 14. This is my first deer with a bow. Shot this deer just directly under my tree stand, right down through the shoulders. I was super jacked about that deer. I think I was 20 on that one. I didn't start bow hunting until I was, 18. This is the first matured buck that I shot, I guess, in my life. I shot that with my dad's old 30-30. And this is kind of a funny story. My brother-in-law was hunting that farm in the city I had with me, and he saw this buck the year before go in to a draw, and he had this other side that year, and he told me that deer was in the draw, so we went up there. I had a rifle, and this deer come running out, and I just threw up and shot it before I could even realize what was going on. It wasn't that deer. 2014, I shot this deer with the bow. December, late season. In 2014, early in November, I rolled four-wheeler and broke my collarbone, so I couldn't hunt couldn't pull my bow back for about a month. And as soon as I could pull my bow back, I went out and I shot him, chasing a yearling doe in middle of December. When I was 25, I moved up here to northwest Oklahoma, and this was the first deer that I shot up here with my bow, right along the river. There was an island of trees in this kind of a low area, swampy area, and he would skirt this island, these deer would, and I shot him there. This deer is my brother's deer that he shot back in central Oklahoma. I was on a youth hunt in early October. It was the last day, and we went into this, it was real thick woods, and we did a little drive, and this deer stood up out of his bed at like 15 yards or so and shot it right in the chest with a rifle. That was a pretty cool hunt. I picked up this dead head, so I think it was 2 years ago, and the same year I picked it up, I found his sheds from the year before. It's one of the most massive deer I have. It's a super gnarly buck. My wife shot this. Was her first deer with a bow, I guess. She went out by herself in the morning and killed that deer in October. Had to leave work so I could come help her find it. Probably the biggest deadhead I have right here. 2 years ago, I got permission on a farm, and when I went in there scouting, I found that deadhead. This mule deer I shot in Colorado. 2 days prior to shooting this deer, my dad and I were going down a trail on our four-wheelers, and I rolled my four-wheeler and broke my collarbone, shattered it, and didn't want to give up my tag, so I kept hunting. I shot him 2 days later. So 2009, I shot that mule deer in Colorado in the same unit as this one. My wife shot this elk, let's see here, last fall on a limited entry rifle tag. My wife shot this 9-point last year with her bow, and then she shot this deer with her rifle. I don't really score many of these deer, but this one's just right at 180. It's not that important. This is one of her deer that she shot with the rifle back in 2015, I think. And I'll start down here because this is kind of the order that I have. So when I moved up here in 2015, I hadn't shot any of these deer, and I don't pay for any leases, just get permission on different farms, and these are the deer on this wall that I've killed since 2015. So I shot this one in 2016. It was the middle of December, and right down along the river, he came through. I was self-filming, and he was walking. I couldn't get him to stop, and I gut shot him and didn't find him for about a week. And the coyotes had totally eaten him up, but got his head. I shot this one the following year in 17. I shot this deer November 8th. I think this is the first deer I ever shot in the rut. He had a doe locked down, and I was calling and calling to him. He wouldn't come. And finally, another buck came to my call, and he came over to run that buck off, and I was able to get an arrow in. Just one of the craziest looking bases I've seen on a deer. Super old deer. And I shot this deer the same year. I guess it was November 28th, 20 days later after this one. And this was just a young deer. I got super excited about this deer because he was wide or whatever, and I was on the ground, shot him at a fence crossing on the ground, and I got up to him. He wasn't as big as I thought he was, but that was fun. That was the first deer that I shot from the ground. And then this one I shot, and I guess that was in 2018 in late October, and probably the biggest body deer I've ever shot. The river flooded that fall, and I had to walk through water to get to my stand. And he came around like a week prior. He came around and saw me because I was self-filming, saw me move my camera, and he ran and went to jump through a little draw that was full of water. And I have it on film. He jumped real high and just landed in this ditch of water. He just disappeared and water went everywhere. And I shot this deer out of the same tree stand. I don't know, a couple weeks later, November 16th, I think, and my brother Shane filmed that for me. That's a sweet film job. This deer showed up on one of my farms that I didn't have any history with that deer. He just showed up out of nowhere, and he was there about a week, and finally I was able to get an arrow in him. He chased a doe right by me. I think it was November 8th. Kind of got a super cool character, which isn't real normal for around here. And I shot this deer November 28th or something. It was like two and a half weeks before our daughter was born. And man, I was putting so many hours in the stand trying to film my second tag before she arrived. And I was able to do it, luckily. So that was 2019. This is 2020. In Oklahoma, you can get 2 buck tags, but I happened to draw into a core hunt, and they gave me a 3rd buck tag for that. I shot this one, I think it was toward the end of November. My brother Shane filmed that one. This deer, I have so much history with this deer. I've only been able to find, I think, one of his sheds, but I've had him on camera and followed this deer for 4 years at least. Super cool story. It was actually kind of bittersweet to shoot him, knowing it was over. And then, so I shot that one like, I think November 28th or 29th. And then I shot him on a Sunday. And then Wednesday, I shot this deer on that public hunt. And that hunt was probably one of the most grueling hunts I've been on, because there was a lot of pressure, and they wouldn't let you scout the area. I went in there totally blind and set up, moved around. I saw this deer the first night I hunted it. And I went back there that next morning, didn't see anything. That next evening, I was where he was traveling along this creek, and he came out like he did, but about 40 yards, I was getting ready to draw, and he spotted me, locked in on me for a few minutes, and then took off. And I thought it was over. So I hunted that next morning and nothing. And then I went just right to where I thought he was bedding, and I ended up jumping him out of his bed. I'm pretty sure it was him. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it was him at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and he came back about 45 minutes before dark, right by my tree, and I was able to shoot him. I hit a limb, cut that limb right in half, and hit him far back in the femoral artery, but he died real fast. And then I shot this deer December 31st of last year, I think, or 30th, on a late season hunt. So that was the first time I've killed 3 bucks in 1 year in Oklahoma. And then I guess you go to the sheds. I think I have about a little over 600 sheds in here. Now this is kind of I'd say my keeper pile, but I keep all my sheds, but these are the ones that are more significant. Those just whatever there. I do have this shed right here. The only shed I have off of moose, so I called this deer Moose. I found out after it had been laying there a year or two, and this was his 2018 shed. And I shot him in 20. This is probably the most unique shed I've ever found. Like a skull cap, shed his skull cap too and everything. He had some kind of injury. Pretty wild. I thought it when I saw it, I actually found it beside the road, and I thought it was a deadhead at first. I realized it was a shed deer. I don't know what happened to that deer. And then, let's see here. Probably the most impressive set that I have. This was on a neighboring piece that I hunt, and I saw him out in the wheat field one winter and got permission to shed hunt the place and found these sheds. This shed was stuck in the ground. I mean, like stuck like that. Pretty sweet, but he's right at 190. The neighbor shot him last year. I guess in 2019, the neighbor shot him, and he was right at 190. But that's probably the most impressive set I have. Around here, it's a lot easier to get shed hunting permission than it is deer hunting permission. But some of these, I found this set this year. This is probably the biggest 7-point in this county. Just massive. If you could just feel how heavy these antlers are, it's impressive. Blows my mind. I've got a shed from him from 3 consecutive years. This was 2020. This was 2019. I hit this one with a swather. And then this was his left side from 2019. On a place I don't have permission to hunt, but I have permission to shed hunt. So I found this set when I was, I don't know, probably 17, 18. He dropped this one along a fence line, and then I looked and looked, never could find this side for months. And then when I was setting up a tree stand in September of that year, he was laying right under the tree I was setting a stand up in. But just a big, clean, typical. This set's from back in central Oklahoma. My brother found this side when he was catching some cattle on a place I hunted every year, and I didn't even know this deer was there. And so I went back and looked for half a day for this left side and finally found it, but the squirrels had chewed it up, as you can see. But that's just a super wicked looking deer. My wife found this set this year. It's just like we call the baby giant. Crazy looking deer. He's been on the farm forever, 4 or 5 years. This is probably the biggest single that I have. Well, this is actually my brother's. I had permission to pig hunt a place in central Oklahoma, and my dad and Shane, my brother Shane, were walking down there looking for pigs along the creek, and I think my dad stepped over it, and Shane picked it up. It's just an insane shed. Some of these I keep if I have consecutive years or whatever, I keep them piled up here. But this is another just shed hunting permission farm I have that probably the biggest 8-point I have sheds off of. And this deer, I've learned, he drops the beginning of January every year. He lost this one December 28th, I think, and then this one he lost January 1st or 2nd. When I moved up here, some of my wife's family land hadn't ever been shed hunted, and I was shed hunting. I found this side. It's old chalk, pretty much. And then at the barn, this was laying in one of the old shed piles, and I'm pretty sure it's a match. They both came off the same place, so kind of a wicked looking deer. Probably the most unique shed I've found. Wild looking. I picked it up. I was like, man, that's crazy. I turned it over, and it's got this huge hole in it. I can stick my finger way up in there. Crazy, some sort of injury or insect bite or something. Like I said earlier, this sheds to this deer the previous year. Oh, this one's kind of crazy. I found this one in 2000. It's just a wild looking whitetail set, and then this year this was his side this year. It's kind of a crazy looking deer. couldn't find his other side though.